Well, here we are. It's February 3rd, and more lunacy coming up all over the world. There's a couple of news stories today that caught my eye, and I thought folks might be interested in it. Maybe not. Who knows? At any rate, this is the a hearing for the approval of the nominee to Education Secretary of Dr. Cardona. And you don't know who Dr. Cardona is. He's a very bright guy. He's been around education all his life, and Biden has picked him. But he is on the far, far left, and what you're about to see is an exchange between he and Rand Paul, who's curious as to his feelings on transgender boys running in girls' sports. And this is a massive issue in the state of Connecticut because the girls are absolutely being slaughtered every week. We're going to get into this a little bit, but I want you to hear what this guy has to say.
What do you think in general about boys running in girls' track meets like they've been doing in Connecticut?
I think that it's critically important that education systems and educators respect the rights of all students, including students who are transgender.
Translation? It's fine. Let them compete against the girls. It's unfair as hell, but let them do it because we don't want to offend anybody, especially people who are born biological boys and decide they want to be girls later on and adopt a new gender. All right. They never say sex. They always say gender because the left wing and the gay community has managed to make that sort of a flexible term. Gender used to mean sex, but it doesn't anymore. But they don't use the term sex ever when it comes to describing what a trans person is because scientists would tear them to shreds for doing it because it's a biological lie.
And that they are afforded the opportunities that every other student has to participate in extracurricular activity.
The fact is that they have that opportunity to compete, but a lot of these trans athletes, these boys, were not particularly good in the boys' field, and now they're transitioning for whatever reason, and they will become the superstars, and they will be the ones winning the college scholarships and winning all kinds of things if colleges are just dumb enough to put up with it.
Bother you that like the top 20% of boys running in track meets beat all of the girls in the state and that it, would be, completely destroy girls' athletics. The girls are being pushed out. If they don't make the finals in the state meet, they don't get college scholarships, that it's really detrimental to girls' sports. Do you worry about having boys running girls' track meets?
I recognize
He doesn't worry about it at all. He's going to go on to explain how he's supporting the law because the law has been misinterpreted badly. And there will have to be a new law put in place to take care of this. And it isn't going to happen with Biden because the outrage from the far, far left, the crazies, would absolutely destroy it. But the bottom line is that girls not being able to compete with girls are going to suffer for it. And I'm absolutely dumbstruck that the feminist movement hasn't stepped up on this and said something. As a matter of fact, the ACLU came out in favor of this, saying that it actually said in an article that all girls are girls. Anybody who says they're a girl, no matter what. And it goes into this long, convoluted argument why it's for the better of everybody. All right? And we'll just let him finish up his silliness, and we'll move on.
I appreciate the concerns and the frustrations that are expressed. I've, as Commissioner of Education, have had conversations with families who have felt the way you just described it, and families
felt the way you just described it. You mean the truth? But he's talked to the parents of trans students, and that's what they want, and that's the way it's going to go. And it's an absolutely amazing thing. And what's really interesting is I found a fascinating article about this. It's written by an athletic coach, and in it, he points out something very interesting about the differences between men and women in sports. And this is not to put women's sports down, but I've competed in lots of sports. I've competed in competitive skiing, and I can tell you that male skiers are much stronger than female skiers. Even great female skiers like Lindsey Vonn and all that. In the men's field, they wouldn't finish in the top 50. Okay, they just wouldn't. It's the same in tennis, same in all the sports. But at any rate, it says here, Olympic sprinter Allison Felix, who some of you may have never heard of, she's an amazing runner. She is tied with Usain Bolt, the famous runner, for the most world championship gold medals, and owns a lifetime best time of 49.26 in the 400 meter, which is very quick. However, keep this in mind. In 2018 alone, 275 high school boys ran faster on 783 occasions than the gold medalist world champion female. She's the best runner in the world. Everybody, by all accounts, was beaten by nearly 300 high school boys almost 800 times in 1 year. all right? And this was in a lawsuit that was filed against the Connecticut Interscholastic Athletic Conference, who is the governing body over their athletics. And so you know where that's going to go, all right? And there's ACLU has a big article about it, and they have the most amazing thing down here. Fact, trans girls are girls. Myth, sex is binary and blah, 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 blah. No, it's not. It's biological. All right, now on to other news in the day. Marjorie Taylor Greene, she's that crazy woman from Georgia who is just, she's been a font of conspiracies now going back to 2012 when she said that Newtown didn't happen. And she's had one crazy theory after another ever since, including one that she spouted out that, JFK Jr. was killed in a plane crash caused by Hillary Clinton and Bill, so he wouldn't ever enter politics. All right, I mean, this is this kind of crazy. She has to go, okay? She has to go. The Republican Party has to cut her loose, and her district back in Georgia needs to recall her, get her out of office. She's absolutely terrible news. And Minnesota needs to get rid of this woman, Ilhan Omar, who's now taking the high and mighty stance. This is the anti-Semite who backs terrorists in Palestine and just wholesale makes up stories about how awful the Israelis are and how wonderful the Palestinians are and how, all that silly nonsense. And she's an anti-Semite and a bigot. And we all remember the Benjamin story, basically saying that the Jews have bought everybody, including some Democrats, and all this. She is a poison for Minnesota, and because they have a big Muslim population, she got elected. Otherwise, she wouldn't have a snowball's chance in hell. And the other news is this: Kroger's, which is that huge department grocery store chain, is shutting down 2 stores in Long Beach, California. And why they're shutting it down is that the city council there decided in the middle of a pandemic that the store has to pay their employees an extra, well, they try to push it through as $4 an hour, but it's $120 a week raise to all employees if they want to keep their stores open. And what they're giving the ordinance is going to last for the next 120 days, see if they can get them to do it, or they can extend it and force them into it. And Kroger immediately came out and decided to close the 2 stores in the area. They just said, forget it, we're not doing it, as a result of the city of Long Beach's decision to pass an ordinance mandating extra pay for grocery workers. We have made the difficult decision to permanently close the long-struggling store locations in Long Beach. The stores were losing money. This is the other story, I'm part of it. And they kept it open because they were begged to keep them open by the local politicians in California, and Kroger's just said, okay, we'll keep them open. They don't make any money. It's a loser for us, but we'll do it to be a good neighbor. And the city of Long Beach came back and thanked them by demanding that they basically bump their payroll by 40% to make them happy. So Kroger's is out of there. So hundreds of workers going to be. This is again the progressive left trying to force regulation down people's throats and causing people's jobs, just like they did in the oil sector, just like they're doing here, just like they did in the coal industry, just like they've done in many, many industries. For the good of everybody else, we're going to destroy your business. And as I discussed last week, the price of fuel is going to go up. The price, the carbon footprint from the Canadian oil is going to increase, not decrease, because it's still going to get pumped and processed, and the whole thing is just ridiculous. But that's the way it is. And then the other thing that was really interesting, there's a story that you're not going to hear it here because the American media doesn't cover anything, but in Australia, the Australian government is looking at a law that would require Google to pay newspapers and so forth that are online to carry their content and profit off of it with advertisements, which is what how Google makes their money. And they're basically saying, if you're going to carry this content, somebody else pays for it. It's copyrighted material. You put it out on the news, that's fine. And you're putting ads on these pages and you're profiting from it. You're going to pay something back to the newspaper that produced that article that is getting looked at. I don't see why that's unreasonable, or a share of the proceeds from the ad revenue that those things generate. And Google is now threatening to pull out of Australia. To Microsoft's credit, they're saying, we're not going to pull out of anywhere. We're not going to pull any boneheaded stunt like that. And as an aside, some of you, I know most of you use Chrome. 80% of the world does. I use Bing. And I have to tell you, if you haven't tried it, the old Bing wasn't that good, but the new browser that Microsoft has is actually better than Chrome. It's much better than Chrome. It finds more interesting articles. It certainly finds more diverse stories. It finds stories that you're not going to find on Google. All right, Google has a very limited list of news resources that they allow through on a regular basis, and they are, The Guardian, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times. End of story. Okay, NPR. All right, but they don't cover any other newspapers. They occasionally have a little something from Al Jazeera, but they don't carry India Times or any of that stuff. But Bing actually pulls in global news. So if you want to get some diversity, give it a try for a week. See what you think of it. It'll pull over all your bookmarks and all your stuff. You won't lose anything. And I think it's a much better browser. All right, and they have a better image searcher too. If you ever picture something you like, you can put it up there and it'll find the duplicate of it. And then this story is really interesting. China arrests suspects in fake COVID-19 vaccine ring. This has been going on for 6 months, and the Chinese finally caught on to it because people were starting to die that had bought this vaccine, apparently, which is nothing more than saline water. And they've arrested a guy, the guy that was running it was a Mr. Kong. And that'll be interesting. So the Chinese gave us the vaccine, and now they're giving us gave us the virus, now they're giving us fake vaccines. It's wonderful, isn't it? The other thing that came out that was interesting, that in India, they've done some testing, and they found that 300 million Indians may have already had COVID-19, according to antibodies that have turned up in tests. In the city of Delhi, they estimate half the population has had it, and they've been grossly undercounting it, and it's a real mess. That's a real mess. It's like the New York story where the mayor of New York, said that if you caught COVID in a hospital and you died an hour later in a hospital, if you caught it in a nursing home, you died an hour later in a hospital, it wasn't a nursing home-related death. Well, it's the same sort of thing. Other news is court rules France failed to respect its climate goal. This was something aimed directly at Macron. It was brought by Greenpeace and a group of organizations, and they said that basically the Paris Climate Accords and Macron, they all talk a big game, but they're not doing anything about it. And France, as far as its air pollution goes, is miles behind the United States, even under the Trump administration. Carbon emissions actually dropped during the Trump administration, just like they had in the past. They didn't go up at all. So when you hear the new administration talking about the damage that Trump caused to the environment, it's absolute rubbish. We remained right on course, just as we had before. We're burning more natural gas, which lowers our carbon footprint. Texas is the largest number of alternative fuel biggest fuel generators in the country, and the United States is doing fine, but France got clubbed. Macron got clubbed over the head for not doing the best he could. The other interesting news is that Adam Schiff, remember crazy Adam Schiff, that bug-eyed freak from California that was always going on in the national news for the last 4 years, claiming he had secret information about Donald Trump being tied up with the Russians and it's hiding in plain sight and da-da-da. Of course, all of it was a lie. The guy is just a lying criminal. It makes me laugh. He wants Gavin Newsom to make him the new Attorney General in California. He's lobbying for it. Nancy Pelosi said that's fine with her because I'm sure she'd like to be rid of him. He is completely out of his mind. But he wants the job because Feinstein is probably not going to run for re-election. I doubt she's going to finish her term. But down here, Dianne Feinstein's seat, should the 87-year-old decide not to run in 2024, she's in a bad way. She has Alzheimer's, and she's a mess, by all accounts, and probably won't finish her term. And at any rate, she's going to step out. Adam Schiff wants to be made AG so he can run for her Senate seat, because after all, being a senator is a lot more powerful than being a House of Representatives member, being a congressman. So that's that story. And then the other news is about this immigration thing where the Bidens yesterday signed this new immigration order about finding the parents and erasing the stain of these poor separated children. Well, the fact of the matter is that these kids, by and large, were not ever separated from their parents. They didn't come with their parents. And if you take a look, these are the numbers from the federal government. This is on the Border Patrol's own records, or what they found when they take these kids in. In 2019, from El Salvador, 12,021 children came here unaccompanied by adults. From Guatemala, it was 30,329, Honduras, 20,000, and 10,000 from Mexico. This is about 60,000 kids, actually 70,000, that all showed up at our doorstep and ended up stuck here. That they came without their parents. They came with mules. Their parents are back in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, whatever they're from, and they sent the children with mules trying to get them into the U.S. And when they got here, there were no parents to pair them up with. There was nobody. In a couple of cases, the parents were here. They refused refused to admit that the children were theirs. And what's happened is that they have managed to get the bulk of these kids back to their parents. It's a big list there, a lot of kids, and they've managed to get most of them back. But you notice how much the numbers dropped once they stopped letting them through. The parents stopped sending them. 12,000 in 2019, 2,000 last year. So they had a 90% drop in unaccompanied children to the U.S. border. In Joe Biden's new policy, you're going to see these numbers go up. You're going to see those numbers from 2020 go back up, and you're going to see them back probably around the 2019, maybe 2017 levels, or worse yet, the 2016 levels. That was the last year of the Obama administration, especially with children being sent without anybody from El Salvador. It's a disaster. I'm not saying that things in El Salvador are good, but sending up unaccompanied children is why we have 545 of them. They were, as a matter of fact, the Trump administration found 480 of the parents in these countries, and they refused to take the children back. They want them here, okay? That was the whole purpose. They want them here in this country. And the other 60 or 70 parents, they can't find them at all because they live in rural areas, they live in the mountains. There's 17 different dialects of Spanish and so forth that are spoken in these countries, and it's very hard to track people down once they get disconnected. But it wasn't Trump that yanked them literally out of the arms of their parents. These kids showed up on the border, but for the most part, unaccompanied, and the parents were not deported without their kids. It's a total lie, and you're going to see the Border Patrol people pushing back on that hard. All right, and there's more of this nonsense about the task force and so forth to unite them. And they also want to find out what the root causes of the migration from Central America is from. This is supposed to be something new. Biden thinks this is some brilliant idea. We know what the root causes are. Violence, corruption, and drugs. Those are the problems in those countries. And they all have filthy, rotten, corrupt governments that can't do anything about it. We have already spent billions of dollars on Central American countries over the years trying to help them square it away. And all the government officials do is steal the money and laugh at everybody. All right. It is a structurally wrecked part of the world. We've taken in millions, tens of millions. I think right now the last Yale study wasn't that there are 11 million illegal aliens living in the United States. It was 21 million. It's up to the people at some point. They have to stand up against their government, as hard as it is and as violent as it may get, and overthrow them and put somebody in power if they can manage to do it. All right. But and we'll do what we can to help them, but that's about it. Anyway, that's the news for the week. Have a great day. Bye.